Hey everybody, what's up? Welcome to another edition of the Chop Shop. Trey Wingo here with my good friend Mark Schlereth as we take a look at what we saw on what is always the greatest weekend in football, divisional playoff weekend. What's up, buddy? How you doing, Stink?
I'm doing great, man. How are you, buddy? You enjoy the weekend?
Yeah, it was really, really good. The games were interesting. It's funny. I talked to you on Sunday, and I just have a premonition that something's going to happen in the offseason that will make people angry. But before we even get into anything else, let's just lay it out there. We saw Lamar Jackson, the reigning MVP, leave Saturday night's game with a concussion. So Huntley, the fourth quarterback for the Ravens, because McSorley and RG3 were also not available, had to finish that game. And then Commissioner Goodell was at Arrowhead on Sunday, where he saw the 2018 MVP, Patrick Mahomes, leave the game with a concussion. And my first thought was, there are going to be more quarterback protections tried to be introduced in the offseason. I don't know what they can be, but I'm telling you, this is not the way the NFL wants to see it play out.
I know. And I don't know how much more, I don't know how much more protection you can put on them. It's funny. Last year I was in London calling a game and went to the commissioner's party out in London and had a long conversation with Roger Goodell. And one of the things I said to him was, I hate the fact that we're so reactionary as a league. I know there's going to be people that are upset. Like, we're doing everything we can to make it as safety conscious as possible. The bottom line is, it's not a safe game. There's 100% likelihood you're going to be injured. Because he was talking to me about, how can we take helmet to helmet out of the line of scrimmage play? You can't, Roger. And part of what I said to Roger was,
don't have a line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Part of what I said to him is, quit making excuses for the greatest game in the world. Yeah. Hey, there's going to be people that don't like it. Screw them. I don't care if they don't like it. You know what? That's what separates most of the people who play the game from the people that don't play the game. They're not tough enough, and they're not gifted enough athletically. So let's celebrate and embrace it. I'm all for safety, but at some point, guess what? It's a dangerous game that we play. We all choose to play it. We all go willingly. So I'm like, let's quit making excuses for our game, and let's celebrate how great it is. And it is a great game.
It is. I just know from the league's marketing perspective, the last thing they want to see are the quarterbacks, those marquee names, not finishing games because of that. So it just set me off, and I actually texted a couple of insiders and said, what do you think? They said, oh, yeah, they're definitely going to try some. So I'm preparing everybody for that. I'm not taking a position pro or con either way. I'm just saying prepare for it. So
I think we should put those big Steve Wallace and the Mark Kelso helmets on the quarterbacks. Remember those big balloon helmets?
Great kazoo. Yeah, the padded outside helmets. Hey, whatever works, man. So I do think we have to start with this. And it is remarkable. And we're just so used to it now that it doesn't seem weird. Tom Brady is 43. He just played his 43rd playoff game, and he's going to his 14th conference championship. That is more than almost every other team in their history has had, let alone another player. The only other quarterback that's close is Joe Montana with half that many, 7. So I think before anything else, and again, people are like, oh, I know, I've talked. No, it's flipping ridiculous that this is happening. And I want to put it in this way before I get your reaction. He's really only played 19 seasons. He didn't play his rookie year. And then in 2008, he missed the entire season, save for the first half against Kansas City because he tore his ACL and got hit by Frank Pollard. So let me put it to you this way. In the 19 seasons that Tom Brady has been a quarterback in the NFL, he's been to a conference championship 14 times. Or put another way, Tom Brady is more likely to make a conference championship game than the average quarterback is to complete a pass.
It's insane. And, I've had the pleasure of getting to talk to him several times. I think I did 3 Tampa games this year and, sat down with him in video calls. And, it's amazing, especially people in our business, how everybody seems to want to write his obituary. They cannot wait for him to falter. And I'm like, I love greatness. He's the world's greatest American. I love to embrace it. I love to watch him play. I do. I love to watch the guy play. And I had a very frank conversation with him. I've been watching this game. I played it for 12 years. I've been, doing what you and I do for the last 21 years. Yeah. And I asked him flat out, I don't see any discernible tailing off of your physical skills. It's incredible. And he said, essentially, I haven't lost anything on my fastball, so to speak. I mean, nothing that I can even tell. Like, he still has the ability to throw the ball. And I don't think he was ever, the greatest or the strongest arm guy, but he truly hasn't lost anything. It's a testament to the way he takes care of himself, the testament to, the way he eats and the way he trains and he does all those things, and pliability and how he works. And I tell you, talking to Bruce Arians about him, says he's the most remarkable guy with young guys, teaching them, helping them, taking care of all his TB12 stuff for them, paying all the bills for them. I mean, the guy's phenomenal. He wants everybody to be healthy. He wants everybody to play long into their careers. And the thing that I always am most fascinated about is you have that much success. Human nature is just to be sated by it, be like, I'm good. And the guy just continues to, he grinds like nobody else. It's just amazing what he's been able to do.
Honestly, I think the best thing for him along those lines was to get out of New England, because, there was a drop off last year, but you see the talent that he was working with last year. And the amazing thing to me about Sunday was suddenly the deep ball is no longer a problem, right? That was an issue for a large part of the season, but they figured that part out in the timing of the offense. And then it was just a stark contrast with what we saw in that divisional game between 43-year-old Tom Brady and 42-year-old Drew Brees. And we'll get to what the future is or isn't for Drew a little bit later on this show. But you could tell that Drew didn't have that fastball anymore. And you could say, well, the ribs, I understand that he fractured 11 of them late in the season, but these are things that were still there early on in this season before the fractured rib, right? You can tell.
Yeah, I think for Drew, you've seen it for the last couple of years.
Correct.
This, I don't want to call it a precipitous fall, but you've seen him labor.
They're not pushing the ball down the field the way they used to. No way. They're just not.
No, and one of the interesting things is I did a bunch of a bunch of New Orleans games too this year, and the only ball he threw with regularity that was beyond 12 yards was what I call that kind of dig hole, like 18 yards on the seam. Whether you're throwing a seam route or whether you're throwing a dagger or whatever you're throwing, is that hole is the only time I've seen him consistently kind of push the ball. And that ball usually lands at about 18 yards. But beyond that, nothing. I mean, and that's, there's a bit of, timing and labor to that as well. So I'm with you. It was hard to watch. I mean, it was great to watch them connect after the game and play with Drew's kids and embrace and talk about those things. But it was hard to watch him struggle during the course of that game. He's just meant so much to this game, and he has been so good for so long. So that was a difficult watch.
Yeah, look, you turn the ball over, you lose the turnover battle 4-0. They turned the ball over 4 times, and the Bucs didn't turn it over once. You're not winning that game. But you got to give the Bucs defense a lot of credit. You and I both were just marveling at Devin White during that game. But for them to go and not allow Mike Thomas to have a catch. Now, some of that, again, obviously is Drew's inability to push the ball down the field. He was targeted 4 times and had 0 catches. That's a huge testament to that defense in Tampa Bay.
It truly is. And, there's so many times when you look at what, Tampa Bay will do. I mean, they're just going to jam you at the line of scrimmage, not let you get off, trust their speed of their linebackers to cover for you. Their safeties are incredible. They have all 3 levels of their defense, pretty incredible. And I tell you what, like you mentioned, Devin White that dude plays with a rocket up his ass. I mean, he just flies around the football field and hits people. It is so much fun. He and Levante David are 2 of the best in the business. Love watching them play. But I thought all their DBs across the board, whether it was Dean or whether it was 23,
Sean Murphy Bunting?
Yeah, Murphy Bunting.
Right.
Carlton Davis is one of the best corners in the football that nobody knows about. So they did an incredible job, and they made every throw a tight window throw, and Drew just didn't have that in him. So for whatever reason, it just did not work out, and the best team yesterday won for sure.
Yeah, and the other thing too, like the Saints, it's got to be a little bit frustrating. We ran the numbers. They have won 49 games over the last 4 years and haven't even made a Super Bowl appearance. That's never happened before. We've never had a team win that many games over a 4-year span. Forget winning a Super Bowl. They haven't even made it there. So look, we'll get to the Drew Brees situation a little bit later. There's a lot of things that are going to be happening with the Saints franchise going forward. And then there was the game between the Chiefs and the Cleveland Browns. And if Devin White plays with a rocket up his ass, does Andy Reid have to walk around with a wheelbarrow because his stones are so big? My God, 4th and inches, 1:40 to play. You're only up by 5. And not only do you go for it, I thought for sure if they go for it, it would be Chad Henne falling forward because he's a big, tall oak tree or something else. To roll out, sprint right. And Chad Henne, by the way, who before week 17 hadn't thrown a pass since 2014 in the NFL, to say, hey, you can make that throw in that situation, big ones.
Yeah, giant stones. Andy Reid. I mean, and you don't. I mean, I understand it if you've got Patrick Mahomes say if they go down here and score a touchdown, we'll have enough left to roll right back down there and get ourselves an opportunity, right? But for crying out loud, I mean, Andy Reid is ridiculous. That play was. I thought for sure Tony Romo was all over. He's like, oh, they're just going to try.
How great was Romo yesterday, right? How great, like that. That's peak Romo right there. Like he was so into it, and he was so genuine with his 12-year-old boy excitement about what was going on there. Like that's not faked at all. That to me is when he's at his best.
Yeah, for sure. And he does. He has that childlike enthusiasm. And I was like, he's 100% right. They're just going to snap or they're going to, try to draw him offside. They don't draw him offsides. They're going to let the clock run down. They're going to punt it and win this football game on the defensive side. And just the fact that they would, and I think part of that was, I think that defense was lulled to sleep. I think Cleveland thought the same thing, right?
Yeah.
They didn't even cover it. They didn't think there's any way that ball's being snapped. Yeah, just giant, like you said, giant stones by Andy Reid. The guy's incredible. What he's been able to do over the course of his coaching career is just remarkable, absolutely remarkable.
Well, there's only one coach in the history of the AFC that's had his team host 3 straight conference championship games. That's Andy Reid. There's only one coach in the NFC that has ever had his team host 3 straight NFC championship games. That was Andy Reid with the Philadelphia Eagles. So there's only one guy that's done it, and it's the same guy that's done it once in each conference. The other thing that I want to drive home, and we'll talk later on in the week when we do our championship weekend preview show about the Mahomes injury and what it means going forward. I cannot tell you what a team win that was for Kansas City, because how deflating it must have been to see the unicorn, for lack of a better term, leave the game. And you're like, holy crap. Because let's be clear about one thing. Harrison Butker missed an extra point and a field goal that's an extra point length. So they should have been up 24-3 when he goes out of that game, right? And that should have been the scenario. But instead, it's 19-3, and then they come back and make it 19-10, and then you lose your stud. That was the definition of a team rising to the occasion, and is why I always say quarterbacks don't win games, teams win games. And that was the definition of it right there with what the Chiefs were able to do.
Yeah, rallying around, obviously, the big hit by Daniel Sorensen as they were trying to score there, going over, and that rolls back into the end zone, and then it's a touchback. And I mean, again, those are plays that great teams find a way to make. They just find a way to win games. And I have to tip my hat to the Cleveland Browns, because they got themselves here. They won themselves a playoff game, albeit a Steelers team that had, stumbled down the stretch. But yeah, I will tell you, those are the kind of things that happen to you as a football team. You first get in the playoffs, where you really learn how to be, like you talked about the Chiefs, a football team, because that's what wins championships. There's the old defense wins championships, blah, blah. No, complete teams find a way to win championships together. And that's what we're seeing out of Kansas City. And that's what we saw out of Kansas City yesterday.
Yeah. The last 25 games, they have every intention of winning, because obviously they rested a lot of starters week 17, which, by the way, in hindsight, turns out to be the greatest thing ever. Because if Chad Henne hadn't played in week 17, do you think he would be as comfortable walking into that situation? I don't think so. But the point I'm trying to make is the last 25 games they've tried to win, they're 24-1. And I don't think people understand how incredibly hard that is. And they're like, well, they're doing this. When they needed to win, they always find a way to win. And that's the thing I take away from Kansas City at this point as they continue this journey.
But so then, by the way, real quick, other than the one errant throw that got picked off by Chad Henne,
which was terrible.
There was part of me that was watching that going, maybe it's not the quarterback. maybe just everybody is so good on Kansas City that everybody's wide open all the time, because he was dealing up until that throw. Absolutely dealing.
The throw to Travis Kelce for the first down was incredible, and then the run on 3rd and 14, absolutely amazing. But to your point about teams finding a way to win, I think that's the best thing I can say about Buffalo Saturday night, because I went through and watching that game, and then I went through and looked at all the numbers. The Ravens had more total yards. They had more first downs. They controlled the clock. They did everything better than Buffalo, except the one big play, and that was the pick six. And by the way, that was the first red zone interception Lamar Jackson has thrown in his career. First one in his career, and it's a pick six when they were going to tie the game at 10 that essentially put the game out of reach. So, look, Buffalo found a way to win the game. They deserve to be there. And I'm sure there was a large part of Western New York that was thinking we may host the AFC Championship game with the way things happened with Patrick Mahomes' injury. But I'm a little concerned about what I saw Saturday night against the Ravens.
Well, yeah, I mean, I completely understand that. Here's what I loved about what Buffalo did. Everybody always talks about third downs and how important third downs are. And I always say, it's really first downs. Yeah. If you're productive on first down, you're going to have great opportunities to be productive on third down.
Unless you're the Chiefs. Unless you're the Chiefs. Like, they scored on a 2nd and 19. I mean, that's when Mahomes is in the game, like, that's not a Cheney situation. That's not a Chad Henne situation. That's a Mahomes situation. But continue.
Exactly. And I will say this about Buffalo. Talk about, opportunistic, and talk about making plays. They just continuously found opportunities within drives to make that one big play on first down where they pressured the quarterback, or they knifed in and tackled somebody in the backfield for -4. And frankly, the question mark about Lamar is going to remain. Can you, when you get behind and when you have to complete third down and, or second down and long situations, can you guys, when you get off of schedule and you're not down in 3rd down and 4, where you have the duality of, hey, we can run it, we can throw it, we can run RPO, we can run option, we can do all these different things. When you are locked into dropping back and throwing the football, Lamar just hasn't been good enough. And, and that's what I'll give credit, a ton of credit to the Buffalo Bills, because they found a way on almost every drive, pretty much every drive, to make one big play in that drive to put them behind the chains where they had to drop their normal offense. And when they have to drop their normal offense, Trey, they're just not very good.
Yeah, no, you're right. And Buffalo earned their spot here. They absolutely did. And we talked about it in the previous show. We both thought Baltimore was a bad matchup for them. I'd like to sit here and say Kansas City may be a better matchup for them, but they played early in the year in Buffalo, and Kansas City ran it right down their throat. And that was the other thing that really impressed me against the Browns, is how effective the running game was with and without Mahomes for the Chiefs. That was a surprise for me.
Yeah, they're so good. I think one of the things that I try to tell people all the time, and they've had all kinds of different offensive line combinations. They've lost one of the best tackles in football in Schwartz, and Osemele also was started the beginning of the season. He was injured. He's out. And they've shuffled some guys around. But one of the things that always amazes me is when they have to run it, they can run it. And I think part of it is they have so many weapons that they face light boxes all the time. And then ultimately, the one thing that I think sets them apart is every time you watch them drop back, Trey, they're getting 4 and 5 guys out. They're holding up with 5 guys up front. And when they break down, Mahomes scrambles around, makes something happen. But the bottom line is they're getting 5 guys out and they're holding up long enough. And I don't care who you are. If you're getting those 5 guys out, if you're getting the Hardman and you're getting the Tyreek Hill and you're getting Kelce out, like, you can't hold up for 2.5 seconds in coverage. Those guys are going to find a way to get open. And how many different option routes and just all the different things they do, where the receiver and the quarterback just on the same page. They're incredible that way.
Yeah, at one point I think they had 21 plays, and they had 11 first downs, which is just an insane ratio.
I mean,
That makes no sense, right? It absolutely makes no sense.
You don't have to win on third down if you're always going 1st and 10. Like
Exactly. To your point, third down is a lot less difficult if 1st and 2nd down, it's, 2nd and 2. You know what I mean? That really works. So then there was the first game that kicked off the weekend, which was the Rams against the Packers. And we just saw the war of attrition there, right? I mean, Cooper Kupp couldn't play. Aaron Donald was clearly nowhere near to being Aaron Donald. And the Packers were a rested, fresh, better team, and they took care of business.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Billy Turner, who, was drafted out of North Dakota State, I think like in the 3rd round, went to Miami, kind of struggled to find his way a little bit, came to Denver. He was here for a while. He was good, but, he inconsistent. Billy Turner has started at right guard, right tackle, and then he flips over for the playoff games and starts at left tackle. And Trey didn't miss a beat. And then Jenkins, who started a bunch at center as well this year, starts at left guard. And like you said, Aaron Donald, even if he was 50%, he's still 100% better than everybody else at 50%. And Jenkins did a phenomenal job. Lindsley, I mean, that group up front, they dominated the trenches against a really good Rams front. And I got to give them a ton of credit and a ton of love. And I can't begin to tell you how difficult it is to bounce positions like that. One, you got to change everything schematically, the way you do things. Which hand's your dominant hand, which foot's your dominant foot, which foot's back. All your sets are backwards. And then on top of that, all the plays, are flipped around in your head. And to be able to do that and do it seamlessly, I'm telling you, I flipped from 6 years of right guard in Washington to left guard. It took me a full season before I felt comfortable playing left guard. A full season. And these guys have just flip-flopped all over the place. It's a testament to them. Aaron Rodgers didn't get sacked. Just amazing what they were able to do up front against a really good defensive. And hey, Aaron Donald's not the only one. Brockers can really play. I mean, they've got a bunch. Yeah, Floyd is a player. Sebastian Day, Joseph Sebastian Day or Sebastian Joseph Day or whatever the hell his name is. 3 name. I don't ever.
3-name guy. 3-name guy.
I don't trust guys with 3 names. I never have. I just never will. But he does wear the Gucci 69, so I'll give him a pass on that one.
Yeah, and then the other thing that everyone was talking about in that game was the Jalen Ramsey touchdown that he gave up when Davante Adams was on him. Look, that's an impossible situation that Ramsey was in. Davante went left, Ramsey went left, he went back right. That's a situation where you have to have that called ahead of time. If that happens, you have to pass that coverage off, right? And you saw when Jalen Ramsey turned around, it was Nick Scott. He's like, what are you doing? Because clearly in that situation, Nick Scott has to go out with Davante Adams, and then Jalen can be in where Nick was, which was on the guy sitting on the inside.
Yeah, that they call that. They always do it when they're running across the formation like that because you do that with disco motion and stuff and your sprint right option stuff and it's part of everybody's offense. But I'm sure Ramsey was just screaming, banjo, 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 banjo. I want to zone this off. We got to get out of man on this because there's no way he's completely outflanked. Ramsey has to navigate all that traffic, right? I mean, it's an impossible task. And that's why he was yelling, and I understand. I completely understand that. It's like sometimes young guys are so locked in, like I got my guy. Blinders. I got my guy. My guy didn't score. Dude, that doesn't help us as a defense, man. So yeah. He's 100% right on that. You saw what's got Brandon Staley, the defensive coordinator, hey man, it's all good. I know there's nothing we can do about that one, but congratulations to him taking that Chargers job. We all thought that was going to go to Brian Dable, but. Good for him.
Are you surprised now that we're sitting here and it looks like Eric Bieniemy, who has more of a resume than anybody else who's gotten a job, may be on the outside looking in unless he takes the Houston job, which was described by Adam Schefter as the worst possible scenario. So that's the only option now for Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, I am. I will say this, though. We all thought that Brian Dable was going to get a job. The further you go in the playoffs, the harder it is for a team. I mean, the teams hate waiting, but I'm 100% with you. It's, I thought Bieniemy would get a job. I mean, obviously Andy Reid, what they've done there in Kansas City, understanding that system. I thought that he definitely would. But again, like I said, the longer you wait or the longer you're in it, the harder it is to get hired. So I understand that aspect of it as well. But I certainly thought he was going to get hired.
And look, I'm just using this as an analogy here. I think Arthur Smith is a fine coordinator, has done a fine job, and could be potentially a very good head coach. But if you're asking me to define what Arthur Smith has done in Tennessee and compare it to what Eric Bieniemy has been a part of in Kansas City, it's not really close, right?
Right. Well, except here's the problem that you get into is people just assume that Andy does a lot of it, right? Andy does a lot of the game
Right.
planning.
But I mean, that wasn't a part of when Matt Nagy was hired in Chicago, and
Correct.
it wasn't a part of when Doug Peterson was hired in Philadelphia. Maybe he'll get the job in Philadelphia, and that might be the best case scenario. I don't know. But it just
I can't imagine him going to Philly if they just dumped Doug Peterson, who was part of Andy's staff, that they're going to go out of Andy's staff again.
Right. Well, that's the thing that always affects me. Let me get this straight. So Andy Reid left Philly. He wasn't good enough. So you bring in Andy Peterson, Andy Reid light, which is Doug Peterson. And if that's not good enough, then let's bring in Doug Peterson light, which would be Eric Bieniemy, right?
Right. Oh, and by the way, you won a world championship with him in 2017. Yeah. But I mean, it does. The Houston thing is toxic, though, isn't it? I mean,
it's brutal. So that leads us to a couple of questions we've got. So let's put some of those questions up on the screen and see if we can answer those, because we'll get into a big preparation for the championship weekend when we do our show Friday. All right. On pure talent, does Brady have more with this Bucs team than with any other Patriot team he had? Oh, absolutely. Don't you think?
I don't think there's any question.
Now look, Randy Moss in 2007, I get it. But that's just one. You go down the list now, it's insane.
Well, Mike Evans is, I mean, isn't he the first receiver in the history of the National Football League to go 7 straight seasons, his first 7 seasons in a row with 1,000 yards receiving? I mean, the guy's incredible. Chris Godwin's one of the best players you'll ever watch. Just a complete football player in the blocking scheme and everything else they do. Antonio Brown, who got hurt yesterday. Gronk is a Hall of Famer, for crying out loud. Antonio Brown is great. I tell you, Scotty Miller can run like the wind. He's an effective player. I mean, they got Cameron Braid's a really good tight end. Like he's fifth fiddle over there. So yeah, hell yeah, they're as talented as all get out.
Scotty Miller and Tyler Johnson made an appearance with a ridiculous catch behind him. So yeah, the depth that Brady has right now in Tampa, I think top to bottom, is far better than anything he was working with in New England. I got a couple other questions that we put out there on Twitter. See if we can get them up. If Drew Brees does retire, do you think the Saints could possibly have some interest in what's going on with Deshaun Watson? Well, let me say this way. I think there are 4 teams that should have no interest in Deshaun Watson. Every other team should have interest in Deshaun Watson. So yes, absolutely. Mark, I don't know how you feel about it, but the Houston Texans traded away DeAndre Hopkins to start this season. And now technically they're thinking about trading away Deshaun Watson to end this season. You can't relegate football teams like you can in the English Premier League. I would relegate the Houston Texans to the CFL or whatever. The Alliance of American Football is not even a thing anymore. If they get rid of those 2 players, that's where they should go.
Yeah, well, and not only that, Trey, I mean, so they get rid of, they bring in Jeremy Tunsil. No offense to Jeremy Tunsil. He's a really good player. They get Laramie. Yeah. Well, see, that's how good he is. I don't even know his name. I mean, they give up 2 first-rounders for Laramie Tunsil,
and then don't sign him to a deal, so he has all the leverage.
Yeah, and then they give then they give away their wide receiver. They get like Tupperware in a 3rd-round draft choice. Yeah. I mean, for D Hop. I mean, I just they don't make any sense at all what they're doing. This is a mess. I would come on pen knee and say, hey, dude, we took completely whatever you want, Deshaun. Yeah. Whatever we completely screwed this thing up because I mean, every team, like you said, Deshaun Watson is legit, and he's one of the nicest kids you ever want to meet. He's super intelligent, completely knows the game, is a complete professional. Lord, I mean, everybody line up and give them everything they want.
Yeah, it's like, people don't really pay attention because they went 4-12. His numbers were insane this year. Like outside of Kansas City, Green Bay, Seattle, I mean, everyone should be lining up. Like literally everyone. He's better than anybody else you might. Lamar Jackson, he's not going anywhere, so put that one in there as well. and Josh Allen. Maybe that's it. Like that. I really don't think there's another team that shouldn't be thinking about it when this continues. All right, we got another question here. Let's take it a little further here as we continue, because obviously the situation with Deshaun is getting a lot of attention. What realistic situation would Deshaun Watson be traded to, and what compensation would the Texans receive? Well, like if I'm the Jets, who have multiple first round, hell, if I'm the Dolphins, and it's nothing against Tua, it's Deshaun Watson. It is a known versus an unknown. You could get 2 first-round picks, second-round picks, and even more than that to get Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think that on top of players like with the Jets, hey, we're going to give you Sam Darnold. We're going to give you both of our first-round picks. We'll give you a second, a third, like whatever. What do you need? I mean, to me, to get Deshaun Watson, if you gave up 3 first-rounders over several years, and you gave up a player like a all-pro type player, you'd be fine doing that. I mean, think about it. I saw Damian Woody, our cohort, put this out there on Twitter. He goes, think about this. You could have moved Jamal Adams, got a draft pick back, and used that to secure Deshaun Watson a year later. What a
Correct.
like that is your executive of the year right now. Boom, done. Joe Douglas, right? So I don't know where or who's he going to go to, but what an unbelievable opportunity.
Listen, I have to believe they'll do, like you said, they'll be as penitent and on his bended knee. They'll bend the knee, because if they do this, you can, like, from a football standpoint, you can say, oh, I get it. You get all these first round picks and do all this kind of stuff. But basically, the Texans don't have that luxury because they've screwed this thing up from top to bottom. They don't have, oh, okay, we'll give you all these picks and let you figure it out. I mean, Nick Caserio is a general manager now. He's the 3rd highest paid GM. They went 2 years thinking they didn't need a GM, and suddenly they realized they need one so bad they made him the 3rd highest paid GM in the league. That's how messed up the Texans are as a franchise right now. The opposite of that is what's going on in Cleveland. We got one more question that came to us on Twitter from Cleveland. What should the Browns be focusing on during this next free agent class in the NFL draft? This is interesting because, to me, Mark, the Browns right now have the 3 things you need to be a good team over a sustained period of time. They have a quarterback that they believe in. They have a head coach that they believe in. And more importantly, they have an identity of what they want to be. Those are the 3 things you need. So if you were Cleveland, based on what we saw, and obviously the idea of Wills going out in that game changed things dramatically for them. He's a stud. Yeah. What do you think the next thing Cleveland needs?
I just think with the Cleveland Browns, I think that they are poised as a football team. They are a poised football team that the sky's the limit. To me, they're in a great position because there isn't some, if we just had this position taken care of. They've got great corners. Ward's an exceptional corner. That you can always add to the defense. I always say, hey man, how do you have difference makers on every level? Like if you had a linebacker, a middle linebacker that was a 3-down sideline to sideline beast, like we talked about with Devin White, would you want? Yeah, that would be a great add for the Cleveland Browns. But they've got great players on all 3 levels. Offensively, something that you said that I think just resonates with me, your identity. What are you? What are you trying to build? Kevin Stefanski has that. He knows exactly what they're trying to be, who they're trying to be. And they've got great offensive weapons. They're in a great position in that they don't have to add anybody. They add the people that they want. The other thing is people are going to want to play there. They see what Baker Mayfield was able to do. They see what kind of football team they have. They see how they can dominate the line of scrimmage. People want to come there, man. That's exciting. That's an exciting football team.
Yeah, and we have to acknowledge too, Baker balled out yesterday. He played his ass off. There were some of those throws. I was like, okay, all right. Haven't seen a lot of that. I mean, like, Baker was amazing yesterday. And I think that the way he played Chubb was dropping screen passes left and right in that game. Right. Some of the throws he made to Donovan Peoples-Jones and the one to Higgins, that obviously, unfortunately, ended up in the touchback. Baker balled out yesterday. He was phenomenal. If you have doubts about Baker after Sunday's game, I have doubts about you as a fan.
Right. Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. He was great. and he has been, especially the second half of this season, as they worked on their identity, as they figured that out, and as they lost Odell Beckham Jr. and as they kind of figured that whole thing out and how everybody fit and everybody's role, they were amazing. And I would like to say this about the Daniel Sorensen hit down on the end zone, and I understand that as the rule is written, that's a penalty. I understand that you can't lead with your helmet. I hate people that come out that have never played the game, go and talk about, well, you just got to see what you hit. Keep your head up. Do you understand how fast guys are moving? Do you understand, do you understand how hard that is for a referee to see it, to make that call as he's trying to watch the ball? Does it cross the goal line? I just there are things that are unavoidable within the context of playing football. Sometimes they are helmet to helmet. They're not malicious. They just happen. And, and I just get to a point where I get so frustrated with people like, kick him out. That's targeting. Kick him. The targeting is a college rule, and it's a dumb rule. And so anyhow, I just wanted to say, it's not like Daniel Sorensen is some animal, trying to hurt people. It just doesn't work that way.
No, and we have the benefit of slow-mo HD replays 500 times that the league doesn't have. Now you could make you could split the hair, I guess, and say, well, why isn't that play reviewable? And I guess that's something we could talk about. But the NFL doesn't want to have 8 million things reviewable because it doesn't want to slow down the game. I wouldn't mind having the replay reviewable if you could get it right. I think Major League Baseball's replay review is fantastic. They look at it for 20 seconds and they figure it out and they move on. If the NFL could do that, fine. Review everything, make everything reviewable. We haven't gotten there yet in the NFL, and that's been the biggest problem. Okay, so thanks for those questions for coming in. We appreciate it. So this is the recap of what we saw divisional weekend. We'll get together on Friday and talk about what we expect, which I think is even a better day than the Super Bowl. I think Championship Sunday is the single greatest day. Divisional weekend is the best weekend. Championship Sunday, to me, is always still the greatest single day on the NFL calendar. So we'll talk to you on Friday, buddy, all right?
Sounds good, my friend.
See ya.